Hey, this is John with Website Hosting Pros, and today I want to talk about what is shared hosting. This is a question I get a lot from clients that are looking to create a website or people that are wanting to start a blog and kind of get going online because there's lots of different hosting options. And so sometimes there's confusion about what's shared hosting, what's WordPress, what's VPS, etc. So today I just specifically want to talk about what is shared hosting. So as usual, Google is able to help us out here. So I just searched definition of shared hosting, and I just thought this may be an easy way to explain it. And then I have a diagram as well that I think that'll really help illustrate what shared hosting is and why it's very important who you buy your shared hosting from. That really does make a big difference. So shared hosting, as a definition here, it's a type of web hosting for websites that allows multiple websites to share a physical web server and its resources among all the hosted websites. And so that's where it gets its name shared from, because if you go to some host, let's just go, for example, this is my favorite, A2 hosting. If you look at their hosting options, a lot of hosting companies now are calling shared hosting just web hosting, but that's essentially shared hosting. But if you see down here, they have an option for dedicated hosting. So dedicated hosting is where you're the only person on that server. It's all yours. You don't share it with anybody, and so it's completely yours. Well, we're talking about shared hosting today, and shared hosting, again, is where you're sharing server space with multiple other users and websites. So I think this will kind of help. Think of this big block as a web server. So both of these big blocks are web servers from different companies. I like to kind of think of it almost like an apartment building. Well, some hosting companies, what they do is they don't have that many apartments in the apartment building. And so therefore, the resources that are being shared by everybody in that building, the electricity, the water, the gas, there's fewer people to share those resources. And so by having fewer people sharing the resources, you're going to have better quality, more hot water. You're going to have less chance of electricity going out or surges, that type of thing. Where some hosting companies are like this, okay? Same web server, but they just pack a ton of people in here. And so you have these things coming into the building, and it's not that everybody has their own connection to these things. Everybody is sharing. There's one connection, and then it gets split out amongst all the units, right? All the apartments in this apartment building. So the more apartments, the more these resources have to get split up. And that is really kind of the main difference between companies that put fewer people, fewer users on a server versus companies that just jam-pack everybody in, which then unfortunately causes things to slow down because you have fewer resources. Also, different hosting companies will manage their resources in a different way. So they'll fine-tune their servers. Most hosting companies nowadays use SSD drives, solid-state drives, versus the old hard disks. The old hard disks, they were a physical disk that had to spin, and so that took time. And then also the server would have to go and find your stuff on the disk, so that took time. Where the new solid-state drives, that's the type of drives that most computers have, that your phones have. Flash cards are a type of solid state drive, and so much faster. Again, I like A2 hosting. Their motto is "Our speed, your success." I think that is true. They really focus on speed. If you go and research, there's different companies, people out there that'll do speed tests. They'll subscribe to different hosting plans. They'll get a hosting plan from A2, from Bluehost, HostGator, GoDaddy, SiteGround, GreenGeeks, all these different hosting companies, and they'll run speed tests. And A2 always comes out very, very, very fast. So, and there's some reasons for that. So again, A2, they call their shared hosting web hosting, and that seems to be the trend now. If you go to Bluehost and you look at their hosting, they actually call it shared hosting. Again, don't get confused with WordPress hosting. That's different. SiteGround, they just call it web hosting. And that seems to be what a lot of them are doing nowadays. So what makes A2 so fast? I pulled it up on their site here. You know, that's one of their common questions, right? How is A2 hosting so much faster than competing solutions? Well, you know, the first thing they say is, hey, we're not going to tell you everything, right? But they have their servers optimized for speed. And they do have turbo servers, which can be 20 times faster than comparable hosting companies. And they all have all SSDs, and they were one of the first to use the solid state drives, and use a specific flash technology that can load pages by up to 300%. They also have their own CDN, content delivery network. If you're familiar with Cloudflare, a lot of people use Cloudflare as a CDN, but they have their own CDN built in so that your site can be delivered faster. So those are some of the things that make A2 much faster. They really are much faster. Again, I've done freelance website creation work for lots of people. I've made easily over 1,000 websites, and I've worked with all kinds of different hosting companies. All the big names you've heard of: GoDaddy, HostGator, DreamHost, GreenGeeks, iPage, Ionos, the ones I've already mentioned, A2, Bluehost, SiteGround, Namecheap. I mean, pretty much all of them. All the ones you've heard of, certainly all the big players, and then a lot of them that probably I'd never heard of, and you probably never heard of. So I've worked with dozens and dozens and dozens of hosting companies, and I always come back A2 hosting. You know, personally, I've used HostGator. I moved to InMotion hosting, which was fine, and they seem to slow down. And then I went to A2 hosting, and I've been with them for over 3 years, and they've been great. Great support, great speed, a lot of great built-in security as well. You know, pricing for shared hosting, it's going to be pretty similar. I guess let's just go to the pricing for each of these so you can get an idea. You'll find some companies that, you know, their pricing might start, you know, $1.99 a month or something. Now, this obviously is going to depend on whether you're paying for a month at a time, a year, or more. The monthly cost goes down the longer the term is for what you're buying. So, and A2 has essentially 4 different types of hosting, shared hosting plans: Startup, Drive, Turbo Boost, and Turbo Max, right? And this lowest pricing is if you buy 3 years in advance. If you buy a month, it's $10, $11. I would definitely get at least Drive if you're looking at getting A2, but the 3-month is definitely your best bet. It's going to be very similar if we look at some of these others. Bluehost is another popular hosting company. They are owned by EIG, which is a big company that owns a lot of hosting companies, so that sometimes is But so again, they're basic, $295 versus $249. So actually a little cheaper, and this is if you get a 12-month term. So I guess maybe a little different. Their 12-month is $599. But you do have to pay 12 months in advance. They're Plus, $545 if you get 12 months, Choice Plus, etc. Bluehost is decent. And then SiteGround is very good. They're known for, like I said, fast and secure. They provide really good support, but they are more expensive. And so you can see their starting plan starts at $4 a month, and then that does go up to $15. Their middle plan, $669, and I'm pretty sure these are all for 1 year minimum to get that price. So any of these 3 are good options. I'll leave links for these 3 in the description box below. Again, my first choice, definitely A2 hosting. Without a doubt, I think they are great, really good speed, really good support, and really good built-in security options. a good, second choice is Bluehost. They're certainly fine and will work well. SiteGround is very good. It's just it does tend to be more expensive, but definitely a good option as well. So just remember, when you are buying shared hosting, when you go after the really low cost hosting, this is what you're going to end up with. Your site's going to be slower. It's going to take more time. It's not going to be as responsive, and that really does play a big difference in ranking. So if you're like trying to do a blog and you want to try to get organic search traffic, the search engines do look at the speed of your site. And so if you're having to share resources, and to be honest, this is what took me away from one of the previous hosting companies I used to use. They had a very good reputation, but my wife's blog and my sites kept not coming up. And, they would have to call them and, they're rebooting the server. Well, their problem was they were overloading their servers, all these resources. There were some resource hogs on here, and they were affecting us. Our neighbor was affecting us. And so when you go to a company like A2, this is what's going to happen. They're going to put fewer users on there. And then if you're overusing it with A2 will notify you and say you need to do something to adjust how you're using the resources. So they actually look out for their neighbors. The other hosting companies, they don't. If this guy's hogging the resources, everybody else just has to take it. Where with A2, if you got a neighbor that's hogging the resources, they will tell them they need to make some changes, or they may lose their hosting privileges with A2 because they don't want this one neighbor to affect everybody else that's on that server. So I hope this helped. I hope this explained what shared hosting is, made it much more clear so that you can understand. If you have questions, certainly leave me a comment below. If you liked the video, I appreciate a thumbs up. Please subscribe and click that bell so you get more notices when I put new videos out.